issue a personal apology. You'll issue a personal apology tonight?
I haven't turned mine on yet. Am I going to have that problem too?
Probably.
You good, Mackenzie? Welcome everyone to the Centerville City Council meeting of June 18th at 7 p.m. in Centerville City. We just finished a work session beforehand with the council and some other officials of the city talking about urban deer problem and other issues like that. We are excited to have a full room here tonight. We're hoping that you can all stay and with us and bring your pillows and sleeping bags, you know, because sometimes the council likes to stay late. But we're going to get to you first. We realize most of you are here for a swearing of our new youth council, and we're excited about that. And I'm excited about that. And it's fun for me as mayor, being in mayor for a little over a year now, of seeing faces I'm starting to recognize. So this is an exciting type of things, I think, for all of us when we have the community being involved like this. We need to start with the roll call vote to make sure we have a quorum to conduct our business for tonight. So we'll start in the end with Councilwoman Meekum.
Meekum present.
Fillmore present.
McEwen present.
Ivy present.
Jens present.
Let it be noted that all 5 of the council members are present. We will begin with a prayer thought by Councilman McEwen.
Well, we usually don't have such a large audience, so I'll be brief. But I wanted to take a few words from a book. It's called The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. And he says, though conscious of the difficulty of learning without a teacher, I set out with high hope and a fixed purpose at whatever cost of trouble to learn how to read. Now that may sound pretty amazing to you as you look at your smartphones and you text back and forth, but it's not a guarantee even in today's society that kids know how to read. And it's amazing how many kids are making it into kindergarten who can't read. I became aware of a program here that's in Davis County, and I wanted to just spread some awareness about the program that's called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. And if you know anyone who has kids who are before kindergarten, get them enrolled in that program. Because not only learning to read is important, but understanding how to read quality and to enhance your vocabulary. That's my thought for tonight.
Thank you, Councilwoman. This is a part of, yes. This is a part I always look forward to. Councilwoman Ivy thought I was going to say something else, but it was the Pledge of Allegiance that I like to always be able to do this. So if you'd all rise with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have an open session at this point in the meeting. This is a time when anyone can come forward to discuss anything on their mind. Please keep your comments brief. So I will now open that open session. If there's anyone that is here that would like to come forward, if you do, just state your name and where you're from. Looks like you were going to go for a second there, Bruce. Seeing nobody responding to the open session, we'll move on from that. And the first item of business on the meeting is the new youth council and a little bit about them and a swearing in that we'll have of them after. So to learn a little bit about them, we'll turn it over to Lisa Summers, their coordinator.
Thank you. We're excited to start another year of a new youth council, and this year we lost, or our seniors and others graduated from youth council, so we're actually putting on 18 new members of our youth council, which is probably a first in maybe the 18 or 20 years that I've been responsible for the youth council, that we've had such a big turnover. So we have a bunch of newbies, so we're going to be working on getting them all trained up over this next year. But we'd like to have them sworn in, and I'm just going to read the names of those who are returning or continuing on the youth council. Our youth mayor is at camp this week, and so she was in Manti and was planning on coming back for this meeting and then going back to Manti, and I told her that was not a requirement of being the youth mayor. A 3-hour drive both ways for a half-an-hour meeting didn't seem appropriate. So we left her there and a couple others with her, but with that, Becca Vogrenick, she is our youth mayor. Ethan Burke, he's continuing on the youth council. Liam Noyce, you can just kind of give a wave when you're here. There's Liam. Anna Moore, where are you, Anna? There she is. Lizzie Fawcett. Okay, those are our returning members. Now, our new members, when I call your name, if you'll just come up and stand facing the audience, and then we'll have Mackenzie Wood. She'll be swearing you in into your official office. So we have, as a new youth council member, Micah Horlocker, Elise Erickson, Kiara Stevens. Yeah, come up, just as I call your name, just come up. Thank you. Savannah Orton, Jennifer Zhang, Julie Diamond, Thomas Greer, Jane Jepson, Ryan Sharp, Andrew Stevens, Reese Allen, Andrew Buxton, Grace Bolinder, Mary Hawks, Brandon Wallace, Ali Vogrenick, Marissa Horlocker, and Mara Williams. So we as a youth council, the youth council that's just finished before you, interviewed all of these fine young men and young women, along with a lot of others, and these are the finest of those. Any of them could have been on the youth council, but it was such a privilege to put these young men and young women on the youth council. So, Mayor,
Lisa, can we ask you what age-wise or qualification is to be a member of the youth council?
you have to be entering the 9th grade in the coming school year and not having graduated, so up into a senior year. So those who will be seniors next year, just raise your hand. Maybe you should face the council for a minute and then turn around and face your parents. Okay, so seniors, juniors. Those who are going to be juniors. Okay, sophomores, freshmen. So we try to have a pretty good mix so that the same thing doesn't happen. So next year they don't all go off the youth council again. So we're forever, training more. Last year we just happened to have a huge group of seniors and some kids who were pursuing sports real heavily, and so they asked to be released from their commitment. But did that answer your question, Mayor?
It did, and
Okay.
it looks like, is this a larger than normal new group? Because you only had 3 or 4.
Right. So
returners,
normally
like
we
you
have
said,
somewhere
so-
between 20
so
and
it's
25.
exciting.
Yeah. Yep.
It's exciting.
We're expecting lots of good, hard work from all of these kids in line. I'm sure we'll get it. So, are we ready to swear them in? Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to have you all raise your right arm to the square. Okay, if you'll repeat after me. I do solemnly swear. That I will support, obey, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of this state. And that I will discharge. The duties of my office. With fidelity. You're now official.
You're official. Youth Council, if you could just start here with Ethan, right? No, Horlocker. See, I haven't had a chance to really meet with him yet. What's your Micah. So turn this way, Micah, and maybe go behind us and shake the council members and our city manager, and this is our city attorney, their hands. They'd like to look you in the eye.
Yeah, have fun.
Thank you for your service, appreciate it.
Yeah,
This is great.
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
It'll be fun.
Thanks. Thanks. All right, we got some good handshakes.
That's right.
You're young
We're
enough.
all gonna be sick.
Yes, it is.
Anything else we need to know about them? Or is that good?
I'll tell you then.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, and thanks for willing to serve and be involved. We look forward to working with you throughout the next year, and thank you, parents, for all the support you give them, and don't forget youth council members to always give your parents a hug and thank them for all the support they give you as well. So, thank you.
We'll see everybody at the parade.
I will.
Okay.
In one form or another, we'll be involved in the parade. And now, if you'll excuse us, we're going to go downstairs and have ice cream at our meetings while they
We could learn a lesson or two from the youth council.
bring me some ice cream.
That's fun. That's almost as fun as the coloring contest. Winners, they don't do that anymore. They used to actually roll out a bicycle and sell it somewhere. At Christmas.
That's pretty nice.
So with what's left, you're welcome to stay in the back, you're welcome to move up front, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Thank you for coming up, those that are willing to.
What's Mark here for?
Which one?
Streets.
Streets.
Is this a scout group on the front row or a school group?
Oh,
Thanks for being here, great.
It's a good week to come.
Great. All right, let's move on then. The next item of business on our calendar is the summary action calendar, and there's 4 items on the summary action calendar, or 3 items, excuse me. And so I guess I would ask if there's any questions that council may have of any of these items on the summary action calendar.
I would make a motion to approve the items on the summary action calendar.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the 3 items on the summary calendar.
Mayor, by recommendation, due to the amounts, I think we need a roll call.
Yes. We have a motion, a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
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 That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the annual fireworks restrictions. And in the past, we've had the police chief talk about this, but we have a member of the fire department here. You want to come up, Dave? Right here and introduce yourself.
Depends on which is your best side.
Dave Powers, Deputy Fire Chief, South Davis Metro Fire. Thank you for allowing us to come speak with you folks today.
And you're still a resident with us, right, Dave?
I am.
Okay,
Yes.
he's a resident
Yep.
here too.
Right by Robin's mother.
Yes, he takes care of my mother when I'm not there.
Yeah. So basically what's happened is it was back in, I think, like 2009, the state legislature opted to have fireworks and kind of the ones that were shooting in the air and those types of things that we hadn't ever had before or we hadn't had for a long time. And as a result of that, there became a lot of infighting, I guess, between local jurisdictions and the state. The state really likes fireworks because it brings in a lot of revenue. They won't say that, but that's the absolute truth of it. And the local communities don't like it because it creates a lot of havoc. But just like with 2 different sides of 2, government entities, the public has the same way, where we have those who really like it and those who really don't, and very few that are indifferent. And so what's finally come as a result of a lot of discussions over the years is allowing the local community to detail out areas that fireworks shouldn't be shot based on proximity to urban interface or fields or those types of things. And so the plan that the fire chief has presented to you folks, which requires a local government approval, not the fire department's approval by state code, requires that if there are any restrictions, that's to be put forward between the local government entity to pass that. The one that has been presented to you this year is the same as last year. And I think that one thing that I always get nervous about is saying, the sky's falling, we're gonna have a really bad fire year, we're gonna have, and then, you know, but in all reality, we're always going to have a bad fire year, and let me tell you why. If we get a lot of water, then you'd think, well, it's not as dry, so, you know, the problem is it creates more fuel. It's like your grass. So the more water we get, it grows, and then there's a lot of fuel there. And then usually how things work in Utah is it really gets hot quick and dries out. And so the state forester right now is saying our biggest danger is a large fuel load in the lower elevations. So up in the higher elevations, the fire danger is not as bad as it has been in the past, but in the lower elevations, that's where we're at with it. And so that's our biggest concern. And obviously those lower elevations are where our communities are. So this is I think you've received the map of where it's at. It stays consistent with what happened last year, and it marries really well with Bountiful's zone as well. And if you were to take a look at the area that's excluded for fireworks, you can see anywhere in that area that has fields and different locations where it isn't prudent to shoot off fireworks. Do you have any questions?
I ask this question every year, and I'm going to see if the answer stays the same. As far as posting requirements of this restriction map, is that required in all retail locations within the city, or how does that work out?
So it is. It's not very well followed, but they are required to post local restrictions.
Because I recall, I might see it on the wall as I come into Dick's Market. There's the fireworks stand that's out there. I generally never see it on the one that's in the parking lot. So I like having the restrictions. It's great. It's really hard for it seems the communication to the community is always tough.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and that's one other issue as we look at trying to define boundaries with this. It's very difficult because there's the danger part of it, but there's just as important as the enforcement part of it. And so one nice thing about keeping it consistent from year to year is that the community becomes acquainted with the restrictions. In addition to that, is it makes it easier for us and law enforcement to enforce it when we stay consistent with those restrictions.
Thanks. So what do we have on this? We're just adopting the fireworks restriction? Lisa?
We do not actually have to adopt the map this year because last year we adopted it permanently in our ordinance. So we have the ordinance that specifies the area, and then we've also attached the map. So the map is there year-round for the fireworks restrictions area. But that does make it more difficult in the future. If we want to change it, we need more notice, obviously. And we also have to get the map to the county by May 1st. So but if we give the map to the county, then they're obligated to give it to the retailers to post that sign. So,
and our obligation is also to post it with the state fire marshal's office as well.
Yeah. So I think we're fine for this year, but the reason it's helpful to have the fire department come is that by state law, we have to establish at least 2 out of the 5 years it has been a dangerous condition. And so that's what we're reporting this year. We're substantiating our ordinance that it's still a hazardous condition in 2019.
So because we have the posting requirement, what is our enforcement option on that? Just other than driving around and making courtesy visits to all of the retailers? Because I think most people are aware of the restrictions, but I still see stuff going off on the hillside on the holidays.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure who has the jurisdiction. It is a state statute that requires the retailers to post that. And the county is obligated to provide them the sign, but
yeah. So typically, the code is a amendment to the state fire code, and so and with the state fire code, we do have enforcement authority. However, not great training on enforcement. So typically, it's a tag team with police and fire. Us kind of relating the code referencing, and the police doing more of the enforcement, and that's a good partnership to have, if that makes sense.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So Brent, did I miss some item too? I noticed that Kevin was here and Mark was here representing some CDBG. Usually a summary action calendar, I just go to vote, but they were here just for backup in case?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. They were here. So yeah, we had Steve Line here from the county in case you had any questions on either the interlocal agreement or the CDBG grant. So I had him on standby just in case you had any questions.
All right, thanks for doing that.
Did
Appreciate
you
it.
see Kevin cheering in the back? It's never been that short for him ever.
Yeah, he was out fast too.
He was
wasn't he?
gone.
He was afraid we would change our minds.
All right. We'll move to item number 4 then. This is a public hearing matter. This is on the property lease purchase agreement and escrow agreement with Zions Bank. From the staff presentation, Lisa, did you want to? Yes.
May I first make a disclosure that I live
Oh,
next
yes, I'm
door
sorry.
to Island View Park, and so I do, and I'm a citizen. I think I can make a rational decision based on that, and that my proximity shouldn't color it.
So you're disclosing for three
For
three
this
items.
item and the next and the next, all 3 of the Island View Park ones.
Thank
Unless
you.
you'd like me to say it each time. I'm
Yeah, you
happy
need to
do
say
that.
it each time.
All right, I'll say it 2 more times.
Okay. Lisa, were you going to talk about this?
Mr. Mayor, we'll actually just have Marcus Keller from Zions Bank, if that's okay, Mark, come up and present the lease agreement. Zions Bank is the one that's doing the real properties. I'm sorry? So Marcus Keller is, has the, So I said
We've got
Marcus.
Mark and Marcus here.
Yeah.
Marcus from Lewis Young, Marcus is from Zions Bank. So what, you can go both go to a microphone or share a microphone.
My worthy opponent over there, no.
So I will preface it, Mr. Mayor, that we did, Lisa and myself have met with Marcus, Mark and Marcus and extensively over this agreement, and we've expressed, changes we'd like to see, things like that, so we have fully vetted this agreement. It's a complicated agreement, which is why we invited Marcus to come, but we have discussed it with the parties involved. So Mark.
Thank you, Brent. Again, Mark Edminster from Lewis, Young, Robertson, and Birmingham. I was here at your last meeting to explain to introduce the agreement to you, which I believe is now pretty much in final form, and the bank's attorney and Lisa have come to a meeting of the minds on that, and we're proceeding forward. There's a few documentation issues that are being wrapped up, such that we can look forward to closing on this tentatively on the 27th. So the action before you tonight is to consider the lease purchase agreement, and if I can answer any questions about the terms, which the interest rate, nothing has changed since the last time. So if there's any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them, because I want to get on that ice cream action. Marcus, please.
Marcus Keller with Zions Bank. I appreciate you inviting us to come and talk a little bit about this. And, again, we as we've talked to Lisa about it, she's given us a lot of insight. She's very thorough. You guys have a great city attorney, so we appreciate that. It keeps us on our toes. It, again, helped me personally to, again, understand some of the nuances with the real property lease. And so we felt like with talking with Lisa and Brant, this seemed to be a good fit for this project. And, again, just so you know, we don't do a lot of real property leases in the state because we only do them with local governments that we feel like have high credit ratings, as well as a lot of this, if you talk to Lisa, the security is not necessarily the greatest, but a lot of it is just a moral obligation of the city to pay us back. And so, the bank feels confident with Centerville being Centerville, and again, the confidence that you'll pay back your financial obligations, that they feel comfortable enough to let us use this as a financing mechanism. So happy to do it, and we appreciate the opportunity to do so.
Questions for either one of us then?
That's what we're waiting for. Any questions for him? Lisa, were you saying something?
Well, I was just going to add something just to remind you. So we have 2 matters on the agenda. One is to adopt the resolution adopting the lease purchase agreement, and then also approving the escrow agreement form. And I also wanted to thank Zions Bank for being patient with me and working through a lot of the details. This was certainly the first lease purchase agreement that I've done, but I think we have come to an agreement on the terms of the agreement. But there was one remaining item that concerned me, which was the description of the financed property, which is going to be the collateral for the lease purchase. So this is on page B3 in the exhibits, and if I could just hand this down, in the lease purchase agreement, Exhibit B. So the financed property, we really do need to describe the property, that is going to be the collateral for the agreement, but there's a bit of a catch-22, because whatever we put in there, we're obligated to build, even if there isn't enough money. So I didn't want to put too much in there, but it also has to be in there if we want to get reimbursement. But I think today we came up with a good compromise that puts in, just rather than, these are the specific items that the improvements will be to Island View Phase 1 and Phase 2, and it may include the following. And so you'll see with the may, I'm happy adding back in the pavilion and the ADA path on Phase 2, which I had intentionally left out because I didn't want to obligate ourselves to too much. But now that we agree on the more flexible language, I think we can all be upfront that these are what we're intending to use the money for, but to have some options at the end if we have additional cost overruns at the end of Phase 2. So with that, I do think staff is recommending approval of both the documents in your packet. And again, thanks to Lewis Young and Zions for working with us.
So that's interesting to me, because through this entire process, the recommendation of the Parks and Rec Committee has been to borrow as much as we can, so that if there's any money left over, we can use it to do other projects earlier. And I thought that would be an option. You're saying that is not an option.
Right, and so there's a number of items that when it came down to it, the money is not as flexible as we first thought. So some of the assumptions, we will not get all the money up front. It's going to be put in an escrow account. We have to request reimbursements as we work through that. And we cannot, if there's any money left over, we cannot use it. It has to go back to the bank to pay for the debt service, although we could amend the agreement if you want to add items. But in discussing it, it is complicated to add, like I explained, hey, they think they can use this for pickleball courts at Community Park, but no. The way it's drafted and the way this really functions is that you have to describe with particularity the collateral, and so this money will be for Island View Phase 1 and Phase 2 unless we amend the documents, but it's unlikely that we're going to amend the documents to include another park. It's easier to just enter into another lease purchase agreement for that park and those improvements.
Are we paying the fees for this amount up front no matter what? Or are those fees going to be prorated depending on how much of the money we actually draw out?
I can answer that. Yeah, so the cost of issuance is paid just by closing the bonds, or I'm sorry, in this case, the lease, the real property lease, so that would be paid out up front. And so the escrow that it's being put into, just so you're aware, all that interest accrued would go back to the city. It's not like Zions keeps it or anyone else. So you are earning interest income on that while it is in there. But as you do draw it down, if you didn't draw down the full amount, then at that time it would be prorated back to the real property lease and the debt service payment. But correct, it would be paid up front.
So just out of curiosity, at what point did we know that there was the limitation that the money would only be able to be used at Island View?
So during these discussions, as we were narrowing down and as we received the agreement and started working through the agreement. Now, I will argue that the flexibility wasn't necessarily, I personally didn't think we were ever going to have too much money. We're pushing ourselves pretty thin just to finish Phase 2. So that wasn't a huge concern to me to see if we could spend it anywhere else. So I didn't necessarily explore it. I find the flexibility in this real property lease in that we were able to change the amount from 1.6 to 1.9, and we weren't beholden to our revenues, our RAP tax revenues. That's the flexibility I was really focused on versus a bond. If we went with a bond, we were limited to 1.355. At that point, we would be lucky to finish Phase 1. So the flexibility that I argued early on was not necessarily being able to use the money anywhere, but just determining how much more we want to do to complete phase 2. And obviously, we're not even doing a lot of phase 2 that we really hoped were going to do, so.
No, I'm fine with that. It's just a learning experience. This is the first time we've done something like this versus a bond, so.
It's been, I think I can speak for Lisa and myself. It's been a learning experience for us too, but.
So we're just making all the notes and sticking them in there.
I still like the product. I honestly still like the mechanism to finance this.
So we're gonna make sure that Parks and Rec doesn't burn us in effigy over this issue, because I know that was certainly, people thought that would go further. Some of us said at the time it wasn't gonna go much further than this park anyway, so.
Well, and I think that communication is that getting this done now allows for, as other sources of revenue stream in, this project's done, and we can start looking towards.
I don't want to go too far off topic, but I understand, based on the conversation we had about pickleball courts, I have already asked Kevin to start actually looking into design. We have no idea what it takes to do a pickleball court, but as staff, we've already started looking into what is it going to take, and potentially I've engaged a staff member to actually conduct a fundraising effort that to help pay for those. So, based on that conversation, behind the scenes, we are doing things with pickleball courts on Community Park. We need a lot more information before we make any
One
decisions,
elephant
so.
at a time, but thank you. That's great. Yeah.
So I have one question. Will we be paying interest on the money that we haven't pulled out that we're not using? You said it will be making interest, but will we be paying interest also?
Yes, because this will be funded entirely at the closing, so the entire amount will go into the escrow.
But will the interest being made and the interest being charged be equal?
No, there's never an
No.
offset that makes that
No.
work in your favor.
Yeah, we can call positive arbitrage, but you're actually pretty close.
Actually, in this case, the PTIF is
Yeah.
above your interest rate.
That's
Yeah,
true. It's what,
so-
about 2.5 or 2 3/4 now?
270, 280.
Oh, well then, yes, you're gonna
Yes.
be making out like bandits on this one.
So let's borrow
This
more.
is why we're borrowing when we maybe don't usually borrow.
Just don't say that to don't let Lisa hear you say that. Or our
Or
lawyer.
yeah,
Positive arbitrage.
or
is
the IRS.
Never any reason to borrow money. We have to wear that inside our shirt.
Great. Thank you.
So for clarification, with this lease, we got more money. Flexibility, we have to do what's on here. With the bond, we would have only got the 1.355. Could have used it for anything, but it just doesn't give us enough money. Okay. Councilwoman Fillmore, so you knew that for Parks and Rec Committee.
Yeah.
So, okay, any further questions of Mark and Marcus? You guys should start your own firm. Don't tell your bosses that. Or Marcus and Mark, either way you want to go.
People, all my life, people said, Mark, is that short for Marcus? No, it's just Mark, that's all there ever was. There's nothing else.
And I get called Mark a lot, so it goes both ways, I'm sure.
Okay, don't leave yet, because this is a public hearing matter, okay?
Thank you.
So, if there's no further questions, we now will open this up to the public on this issue we've just been discussing, the lease purchase agreement and escrow agreement with Zions Bank. Any comments from the public? Just state your name and where you're from. If there's nobody from the public, then I will close the public hearing, and I will entertain any further questions or a motion. Lisa, did you?
So in your motion, again, just approving the resolution, which approves the lease purchase agreement, and if you could say, including the revised Exhibit B that was handed out tonight, and approving the escrow agreement.
Motion to approve Resolution 2019-17, adopting the real property lease agreement with Zions Bancorp with the red lines included in Exhibit B, and approving the escrow agreement with Zions Bank.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yes. That little comment about this allows us to borrow more money than the 1.355 that we were limited to gives me a lot of heartburn. I remember that we were very, very conservative in how much RAP tax we were predicting that we would get. And so it may be that we get substantially more and it covers it. But if it isn't that case, then we're looking at the general fund as the backstop, correct?
That's correct.
The same general fund that also gets the increased Utopia payment every year. Okay. Just wanted to make that clear. It makes
But
me,
also, Stephanie, with some of
Yes.
this flexibility in language, I mean, we can't overdrive this agreement in terms of we may run out of funds or the drawdown we talked about. Since it's in escrow, I think we have some options available to us.
it still pains me a lot.
Okay, any further comments or discussion? If not, we'll start with the roll call vote, starting to my left, Councilmember McEwen.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
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 That motion passes 4-1. All right,
I live next to Island View Park. Same disclosure as last time. But I think I can be objective as a citizen.
thank you, Mark and Marcus.
Thank you so much.
All right,
We typically hand these out after the vote, so it doesn't look
You know you're on camera, right?
As long as you do one Councilmember Ivy, then.
I didn't vote, so I could take one, but. I'll put it right there. Okay, so moving on to item number 5. Councilwoman Ivy just gave her disclosure on that. This is Island View Park renovation Phase 1, ratify notice of award. And this is the notice of award to BHI for the Island View Park renovation Phase 1 and publicly acknowledging use of federal funds for project in the amount of $677,000. Lisa, did you want to discuss that?
Yes, this is just a quick item. I would like you to ratify the notice of award that you approved last time, so that we can specifically state on the record that this part of the money going towards this contract is coming from the Land and Water Conservation Fund in the exact amount of $677,000. So as long as we disclose that and announce that on the record and reapprove that, we're great.
Okay, any questions for Lisa on that one?
And you can also see, it gives you a second opportunity to review the revised language on condition number 4, which was the approval authority of the city manager on change orders.
I'll take a stab at a motion then. So a motion that we ratify the notice of award to BHI for the Island View Park renovation to the amount of $677,000 with funds from the LWCF grant.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Did you get that second, Mackenzie? Councilman Ince will say. Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote on it, starting with Councilwoman Fillmore going to the right.
Aye.
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 Waiting for Brent.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, it's item number 6, Councilwoman Ivy.
I live next door to Island View Park. I think as a citizen, I can be objective.
Now, where do you live again?
Right next door to Island View Park. The part that's going to be the most adversely impacted by the ADA ramp.
Everybody knows where Councilwoman Ivy lives now, so. Item number 6, Island View Park renovation Phase 2. This is design professional services agreement. We're considering the design professional service agreement between Centerville City and G. Brown Design for Island View Park renovation Phase 2. Lisa, do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, so G. Brown is currently under contract to design Phase 1 of Island View Park. I think the city's been pleased with their work and expertise on this, and we would like to enter into a contract to have them also do the design work, professional services for Phase 2. And so we are entering into a new agreement. We could have probably amended our original one, but I want to keep the projects very separate because Phase 1 is a land and water conservation, and it has to be specifically billed to that line item. So I recommended we do a separate agreement for Phase 2. The important information is in the exhibits, which show their scope of work. I also wanted to highlight and make sure, at some point, we need to finalize the concept plan for Phase 2, but I did put in the latest and greatest of Phase 2, where we are now, which does include the pavilion and the restroom and some pathways. So that version of Phase 2 concept plan is in this agreement. Now, obviously, we can make a few changes if we make any changes to that, but I did want to highlight that. I just put in there that the work had to be completed by March 31st, 2021. I talked with G. Brown. They are hoping to be way ahead of that schedule, but that was just something that we can decide on, so if you wanted to change that completion date for their services. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but staff is recommending entering into this second agreement with G. Brown for Phase 2.
And if I could just add, we did do a competitive bid for Phase 1. They're still continuing that same bid amount as far as, so we didn't feel it was necessarily actually go back out for competitive bids. So, and again, they've already done quite a bit of work conceptually for Phase 2 at this point, just because we're trying to tie the two together, that we felt comfortable going with them on Phase 2.
Well, and when we went through that very lengthy, in-depth process, the communication and assumption was we would keep this firm retained for the near future for park projects, so this is great. And Lisa, you read my mind on the two questions that I had, so thank you.
I did wonder about the trails. We mentioned before the fact that is used as a walking path up at the top, and that the exact number of, you start here, you end here, you've walked exactly this far, is important to a lot of citizens who use it. Has that been communicated to the design company?
I don't know, and maybe Bruce can speak to it, but I just want to highlight, if you look at that walking path is not actually in Phase 2. So Phase 2 is a smaller version than the park. So Phase 1 and Phase 2 do not encompass the entire park. So there's an area that will still have that walking path all the way around. But that's probably a good idea just to mention and make sure that G. Brown understands that that's an important aspect. But it appears to me that it's still there with the new Phase 2 and then also existing outside of Phase 2.
I agree with making a note to be sure that that's communicated.
Okay. I'm happy to.
If they can, kind of round it up as far as distance, so that people say, I know I've gone a half mile or quarter mile.
Or stop on 9 3/4 or something significant.
Yeah, Bruce, you're welcome to make comment.
Bruce Cox, Parks and Recreation Director. The walking path was actually one of the things that we had to cut. And if with these new developments of the loan, there is extra money. We had already talked with G. Brown Design that the more of that walking path that we could replace, the better. And within our own operating costs, as sections crack or are lifted up, we would like to try to replace as much of that as we can. Some of it is included, but as the more of it that we could replace, and the part that we cut out actually extended it out and made it a little bit bigger loop farther to the north. So if that's at all possible, in which it sounds like there might be a possibility if there's any leftover funds that or if anything comes in lower than expected in costs, we'd like to put it towards walking path. So.
How do you decide in a situation like that, cement versus asphalt for a walking trail?
How do we decide?
Yeah, I mean, would it make sense in this case on a highly used trail?
Particularly on the east side, the problems are roots and trees from the slope, and so I would like to try some different things. Actually, a root barrier, possible a flexible surface, but at least at a minimum, taking out the broken sections or raised sections and making sure it's a smooth surface. A hard surface seems to work best for people who are using it year-round because it can be plowed and cleared. The snow and ice can be cleared off it. I don't know if that's as easy to do on a softer rubberized surface or something like that. But
while you're up, Bruce, I've had a couple of very animated conversations about which trees are going and which trees are staying. Is there somewhere that I can channel those interested parties to make comments about which ones are nuisance trees and cause problems and which ones aren't?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Yeah, do you know which ones, which trees?
Well, I have repeated comments made to me.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could send the
I can tell you just in general.
I'd just like to send someone there.
I have a planting design, planting plan already, and it can still be tweaked. In general, the trees on both the south and north ends will stay. The ones in the middle of the lower section are going to be going, and on the top level, there's only those that are in the way of this new walking path will be coming out. They'll be grubbing most of it. In general, if that helps, I don't know.
Okay, maybe I'll have to send somebody your way. Okay, thanks very much.
Was there any further questions? If not, let's take a stab. Someone at a motion on this.
I'll make a motion that we approve the design professional services agreement between Centerville City and G. Brown Design for Island View Park renovation phase 2.
Second.
A motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote on it, starting with Councilmember Ince. Down to the right.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0. All right. No disclosure required on this one, Councilwoman Ivy. So we got item number 7. This is the final budget for fiscal year 2020. This is a public hearing matter. We have discussed this previously with the public 2 weeks ago. And so this is something we have to ratify by the end of June. So in the last couple of weeks, Jake, are you going to share for us what's taken place and some highlights for us?
Yeah, so it's been a process, but I think it's been a good process. We've gone through several work sessions, public ones. Public was always invited to come. We've had a couple of council meetings as well discussing this budget, this final budget. We have a budget that's balanced. We have several funds. All of them are balanced. We're providing quite a few services. If you read the background, you can read. If you go there, yeah, there we go. You know, there's a brief summary there of the services that the city provides with the funds inside of this budget. At the beginning of the budget, I would invite everybody that's here to get a copy of that final budget. There at the beginning of it is a message that kind of summarizes what the budget covers and some of the new things that have been implemented this year or been funded for this year. From what we've done last or 2 weeks ago, I just wanted to point out a few changes so they're not a surprise to you, council. Let's see, we updated the property tax amount with the certified amount, and that's required by state law, so that's been done in here. As you know, there will be no primary, so we've reduced the amount that we need for elections. So that amount now is $15,000. And we've also reduced the fire services assessment, which is good news. It's down to $893,720. So with those changes, we're proposing to fund a copy machine for the police department, a salt rack for the Public Works building, and there's a little bit more that goes into the personnel contingency to fund our liability. That's in that account, and it also looks like it's not funded right now in the budget that's here, but I know we've had a discussion of having an electronic billboard kiosk, however that will look, and funding that at $30,000. And I do have some language here on how to make the adjustments to the budget, if that's what you decide to do here. So just some recommendations, kind of what we've discussed before. Also, in this final budget, and I have some language here if you want to change that, is the spring cleanup, the curbside spring cleanup. And what we've done there is we've actually used fund balance to finance or to pay for that, one end on the revenue end, and then on the expense side we've increased it from $20,000 to $40,000 for that spring cleanup. I have some language in here if you want to bring it back to what it was before.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can interject, there isn't necessarily a need to change that. I mean, we can leave some of the funding there as we explore other opportunities, what we're trying to do to expand the program. If we don't use the fund balance, great. I mean, there is really not a need to change that language. We can leave the budget as is in the sanitation. If we don't use it, great. We won't use it if we don't have to, but if it's there and we expand the program a little more, have more locations, extend it out another couple more weekends, it'd be great to have a little bit of fund balance or a little bit of extra to work with to make sure we do the program right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's all the changes that I have. So it's I should mention in the Whitaker, we have an issue with the grant where we're not going to be receiving the funding this year. We're expecting to get that September, October of this next year. So I put that into the Whitaker budget, that's $7,500, and that's and then on the other side, I have a contribution to fund balance of $7,500. Since that $7,500 has been spent this year, so really they're using their fund balance, and that'll be something we'll adjust in the 19 budget. Does that make sense? The $7,500, we're moving it from this year to next year.
And why is it that we're not getting it this year? Was there something that?
I can address that. So spoke with Corey Snyder. The issue is it was a two-part grant. Landmarks Commission had a portion they need, and it's not complete. So we can't apply for reimbursement until both parts are complete. So we have, according to Corey, it'll be complete mid-July, and then we have it up until August 31st to apply for that reimbursement. So we're waiting for that second part to be complete.
Yeah, so it's a timing. The funding is there, it's just timing.
Thanks, Jake.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions for Jake before I open this up to public hearing?
Jake, to this point, have we received any additional public comment via email?
I haven't received any. I haven't seen anything the last couple of weeks.
Thanks, Councilman. Okay, at this point in time, then I will open this up for a public hearing. This is public hearing on final budget fiscal year 2020. And so any member of the public is welcome to come and comment on the budget. Just state your name and where you're from. Okay, if no comments, I will close the public hearing. And we will ask if entertain any further questions or discussion before I ask for a motion. If not, then I would look for a motion. We have, what, are we approving all 5 in one motion on this? Lisa, is that okay?
Yeah, you can take them one by one or all at the same time.
You don't have a preference? Not the answer I expected. We're fine
As long
legally?
as you state what each one is.
Okay, so if whoever gives me a motion, they're gonna have to state all 5 unless we do them one at a time.
All 5 or all 3?
Do we need Jake's?
And I've got a sheet for the lucky person to make the motion.
Hand it over. I jumped the gun last time, so I figured I should correct that.
So what I put on here, these are the increases, the decreases. This is the sprinkling, so you can move on, that's where you're already at.
That's going to be too much to say in one motion. How about we
Just
do
divide
this? Why don't we do the simple ones first? Motion to approve Resolution 2019-11 establishing the Justice Court judges' compensation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on that. Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote. Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 5-0. Can we look for another motion on setting the tax levy?
Motion to approve Resolution 2019-12 setting the tax levy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on that. Going to my right, Councilwoman Ivy.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 5-0. And now we have fiscal year 2020 final budget.
So these suggested changes for the budget, that's way too much to read out in a motion. Do we have that as a displayable attachment that everyone can see?
I don't, I just have that sheet.
Okay. Huh.
This is why we don't like to wait till the last minute to make changes to the budget. We're just trying to show you what it's
Sure,
like.
sure. Well, how about I just read out what it is, and if anyone has objections to what's in there for the changes, we'll go from there. So, motion to approve Resolution 2019-13, adopting the fiscal year 2020 budget with the following changes noted. Increase the following line items: capital, or City Hall capital project line by $28,000, summer recreation fees by $1,000, summer recreation capital equipment by $1,000, baseball fees by $1,000, baseball capital equipment by $1,000, water admin charge by $9,000, sanitation admin charge by $1,000, storm drain admin charge by $4,000, RDA admin charge by $4,000. Decrease the following line items: council contingency by $1,000, management services capital equipment by $2,000, streets vehicle maintenance by $1,000, parks citizen participation projects by $1,000, personnel contingency by $5,000, water capital projects by $9,000, storm drain capital projects by $4,000, sanitation contribution to fund balance by $1,000, and a change to the spring cleanup, decrease the sanitation use of fund balance to 0, decrease the spring cleanup to $20,000, and I will not restate the motion.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any council members need that to be restated? Let's start a roll call vote, starting with Councilwoman Fillmore, going to the right.
Aye.
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 That motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
And with
Thanks.
that, I'd like to thank staff for all their great work
Thank
on this
you.
year's budget.
I agree with Councilwoman
And
Fillmore.
staying flexible up to the very last second.
Up to the literal last second.
That is very nimble and a great quality to have.
And since it was such a quiet public comment here, something must be going right.
Okay. Item number 8, this is a discussion on the final subdivision plat extension for Sheffield Downs. Mackenzie, I hear you get to put on your second hat, do you? Not this one?
I'll do it.
But, wasn't I told Mackenzie? Come on, Mackenzie.
I'm doing the planning commission report.
Lisa's doing this.
That's my mistake, Mr. Mayor. It was Lisa reporting on this, but not Mackenzie.
I may have written it down.
Lisa
wrong, too,
playing
Matt.
Mackenzie.
All right, Lisa, if you want to, I thought it made sense if it's both roles she's doing right now, so. Lisa?
Yes, you have before you a request for an extension of the final plat for the Sheffield Downs PDO subdivision. Our ordinances have a 6-month requirement that the plat has to be recorded within 6 months of final plat approval, which is a pretty short time frame. And Brighton Homes has been working to put in some of the improvements within the subdivision and are requesting an extension. They can speak to some of the reasons, but it has been a wet spring and they're waiting for some easements to be vacated and relocated before they record the plat. So our ordinances do allow for a plat extension for up to 6 months, but there's also a technicality on the PDO expiration, so we're actually just recommending an extension through October 24th of 2019. Brighton said that's fine. They're planning on recording the plat pretty soon. So staff recommends it as a administrative matter, and Patrick Scott is here for Brighton if you'd like to hear from the applicant.
Well, Lisa, the 6 months is the same whether it's a empty lot or a demolition, right? And it's much
True.
more complicated
Yes,
with
versus
the demolition.
demolition and, yes.
And so 6 months is short in any circumstance, but let alone in this situation where there was such a large demolition.
Yeah, and
demolition
in our
stage.
subdivision ordinance rewrite, we're actually recommending 12 months
Yeah.
because of the new state law that allows them to install the improvements, the infrastructure prior to recording the plat. So this just gives them a little bit more time, but.
Well, and to your point, Tammy, with the fact that there's been positive, measurable movement throughout the entire window, it makes.
We're not worried about it, just
Yeah, it's-
not happen.
It's an administrative matter, not needing to punish anyone for not recording the plat.
Right.
Patrick, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. I think Lisa covered it.
Okay. He's here for questions if anyone wants. Any more questions for Lisa or Patrick?
Motion to approve the extension of the final plat for Sheffield Downs PDO until October 24th, 2019.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
If we could just make that subject to the conditions set forth in the staff report as well.
Subject to the conditions set forth in the staff report.
That's a friendly, yeah. I'll second it.
Okay, that's the new motion with the second on it. Let's do a roll call vote, starting with Councilwoman Ivy and going to the right.
Aye.
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 That motion passes 5-0. Brent, you're
Really
Councilman
like to get
Meekin's
the
eye as a
LRs
city
on
council
this
member. So, okay, thank you. Thanks for coming again, Patrick. Good to see you again. It's item number 9, appointment of city recorder. Brent, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, we have the resolution to appoint Leah Romero as of July 1st. She's starting next Monday on June 24th. However, we just have an overlap that we're going to keep Mackenzie on as the official city recorder for at least a week while Leah is training, learning. And so we're pointing at July 1st, but her start date is still June 24th. And this is just a resolution to appoint her. Anything further, Lisa? Did I get it all?
That's
Okay.
So moved.
So is that a motion that's, you're so moving that
I
motion?
move we
Second that.
We have a second to that. Okay. Councilman Ince, you want to start the roll call vote going to the right?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0.
I just have to say, I think we're really excited to get Leah. She's going to be amazing, and I'm going to be really sad to see Mackenzie go both at the same time. I'm glad she'll be close enough I can still find her.
The question is, will she make us sound as intelligent as Mackenzie does?
I know. Well, and will she always be there whenever you need anything? She will be. She'll be awesome. But Mackenzie does need just needs to be recognized as have been amazing.
Thank you, Mackenzie, for all
And
you've done.
And we're so excited for you.
So, yes. Item number 10, minutes review and acceptance. We have the minutes of the June 4, 2019 work session and June 4, 2019 city council minutes. Do we have any comments, discussion, changes on those?
Motion to adopt the minutes as recorded.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Item number 11, this is the mayor's report. So I will report on 2 items on here and one other that came up in the fire station, or the South Davis Metro Fire Board meeting yesterday. So on the 5th of June, we had the ribbon cutting at the Tingy Pavilion. That went very well. Earl Tingy was there along with 3 siblings. There's 10 in the family. Lost one years ago in a car accident. But they had representation from the, I think maybe not all the 9 families, but they had 6 or 7. They had representation for. Earl Tingy gave a nice little history of the land and how those ball fields down there the ball fields were made up of land that years ago that was the Tingy Farms and Ford family, I think, as well too, and it was kind of fun to see as he talked with grandkids and great grandkids there under the pavilion down on the frontage road. Bruce and his team did a nice job setting up the ribbon to be cutting. The plaque, if you have not seen it, looks really good. They did a plaque with Bill and Sylvia Tingy in it, and so you can read about the family history. And Bruce told me a funny anecdote on that. They had to add what? Cows? Carrots. Yeah, they actually farmed carrots. They'd missed that in the first go-around. And Earl Tingy called Bruce back. He says, "It's missing carrots. That was such a big part of what we did." And everybody remembers being on their knees pulling carrots, and so do we still have time to put carrots in? And fortunately they did, so it has carrots there as well too. So it was a nice evening. After that, I ran over, because I was right there, and we had our tournament going on for the baseball season. And I went over for an hour or so and watched some baseball games. And I hadn't been there in years because I coached all through my children through there, and it was fun to be back, and it was fun to see the excitement and the activity levels, and it was fun to watch some of the coaches interact with their players and the teaching that was taking place. And it was just a great outing, a great event. It gets a lot of people, a lot of families there, and so that was a rather fun night for me, that Wednesday, the 5th of June.
Mayor, can we also remember the Parks Committee? They had the popsicles and did the decorations for the Tingy Pavilion.
Thank you. Thank Bruce and his staff, but thank you. I knew there were some, but yes, they brought popsicles, and we had 3 or 4 members of the Parks.
Yeah, there was quite a few members of the Parks Committee there. I was very impressed.
Yep, so it was really nice, very nice. 4th of July planning update. We're looking to get going on the 4th. We got I don't know as of the last couple days, but we had 56 entries in the parade, down just a little bit, but and they will take some more if anybody wants to, know of anybody who wants to enter. We got of course, the music lined up in the park. It's Eclipse 6. We got both the Arts and Quilts Festival again over in the elementary school. We got the fireworks all lined up, and I've been told that the flyover should happen. It'll be a little bit after 9 o'clock, but it should happen. I was concerned with the runway at Hill Air Force Base getting closed down, but so we'll see. They continue to work hard on that, and we got the parade going down Main Street, and we're confident that we'll have a route down Main Street. So. Anything I may have missed on 4th of July, questions you may have?
How confident are you?
So
I'm driving Main Street, and I'm really hopeful.
That's why in our May meeting, they got panicky, and 2 days later had a meeting here during the day about potentially going down 400 West with it. And we are assured that we would be able to go down Main. So I appreciate the 4th of July committee that they were panicky as well too, and looking at some other options. So the last thing that was not on the agenda, but it came up was about our new fire station. Just a minor thing. It could be major though. As I drive down that road, I look at it every day and I say, this isn't going to work very well. A big utility pole sticking up with these big trucks pulling out of the garages. I don't know if you've noticed that. I thought there's no way that one of those big engines is not going to swing the back side and take this utility pole down. So I asked that question at the South Davis Metro Fire Board meeting yesterday, and Chief Bassett assured me that that's Utah Power and Light, and they will not, they are going to move it, but it requires that everything kind of be completed before they move it. So that is going to go. If any of you had other concerns about it, he said that he has had many people call him about that, and so that is going to be moved. Okay, if anybody's concerned on that one. So.
Is there anything we can do to expedite it so that we can have a very cool ribbon cutting on September 11th?
Oh, that would be neat. He's shooting for October. I don't know.
If we could do a ribbon cutting on September 11th with the address the way it is, it would be so amazingly cool.
Yeah.
Probably the coolest thing we as a council have an opportunity to.
So I'll put the word out to the chief, but yesterday in our meeting he says the projection was October, so that's really expediting it. So
October, how early, how late?
He said October. He didn't. Yeah.
Wouldn't be the first building that was ribbon cut before it was quite done.
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility too, Kent, where you could do a ribbon cutting and there's maybe some things inside that aren't done.
Yeah, if he's got the doors on,
Yeah.
most people won't know the difference.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea.
I
You could do
vote
it,
for pushing for
go
it
that
if
way.
there's any way we could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. If no further questions for me on the mayor's report, then we'll move on. Planning Commission report, Mackenzie.
Mr. Mayor, while she's getting down there, I just have one question. What's Utah Power and Light? I've never heard that term.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, Mayor, I have.
It's back when we had things like Questar and,
You know,
Ma and Pa Bell, is that what's going on here?
as soon as I said that, I didn't want to correct myself. I was hoping nobody would catch it.
We knew it.
That's the company I remember growing up, but I thought, they're not around. Thanks, Brant. He told me one time after a meeting that I didn't correct you on something, but I said, well, let me know at some point, either the meeting or after. So I can take that ribbing.
Well, and it says something about me that I didn't even think twice about it, right? Because it's still just in my brain as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounded strange, but I,
Awesome.
Mackenzie.
I wasn't around for Utah Power and Light. So
My
last,
parents own stock in it, that's why I remember it so well.
okay, so last Wednesday, the Planning Commission met and they went over 4 things as listed in the agenda today. The South Davis Metro Fire District came and their conceptual plan amendment was approved. The changes were to the driveway, just some minimal changes to the driveway and the sidewalk design, just for easier design for everyone and a better maintenance plan. Island View Park, Bruce came to Planning Commission last week and their amendment was accepted by the Planning Commission after loads of discussion on that item. The Planning Commission reviewed the accessory building setbacks that you asked them to review, and so they have modified the recommendation, and that will be coming back to City Council in the next City Council meeting. And then, once again, we went through, I think it was Chapter 8 in subdivision ordinance review, received a lot of comments from the Planning Commission to edit that chapter in the ordinance. And that's it. Any questions?
how did the setback debate go? Was that pretty uniform, or was there a lot of passion on that?
There was a lot of discussion, there was a lot of passion that went back and forth until they landed on what they felt.
Is everybody
met
still
the
friends
needs.
at the end of it?
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah, they all came together at the very end to satisfy what they felt was good for residents, but also for building code. So, yeah,
Well,
it was a really good
It's
discussion.
a tough one, because which resident are you talking about? The one building or the one?
Right, and they definitely went over that.
It's
so.
one of the really, really hard ones, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, well, you can review what they went over in their minutes, but I think they modified it to fit more of the population. So I think it was good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. All right, item number 13, City Manager's Report. Brad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do have a number of things, and I'm going to defer part of this to Jake as well. So as I've mentioned in weekly updates, Jake and I attended the International Economic Development Council's Future Forum. Rarely are these events held in Utah, so I just thought it would be a great idea for Jake and I to attend to introduce Jake to economic development. So first I'm gonna have Jake come up and talk about some of his takeaways, and I'll share some of my takeaways, what we learned at the conference. We didn't attend, the same sessions, which I always like it when we attend different sessions, and then we can come back together and compare notes and share what we've missed in each other's conferences. So.
Yeah, first of all, it's the first time I've been to a conference with these kinds of individuals. No, it was great. They were actually very positive, outgoing people, have a lot of aspirations. It's the only conference I would go to. We had one of the speakers was the Olympian, Shannon Barkey. She was the downhill. When was, oh, that was during ours, yeah, 2002. And she was able to get everybody up out of their seats and doing the hokey pokey and throwing balls at each other and saying each other's names, you know, and walking around and everything. That would never happen at a GFOA one. I'm sorry, the CPAs aren't getting up and doing that kind of thing. But that's the kind of caliber of people, and it was fun because that energy was there during the whole conference. One of the takeaways I got, I attended a lot of sessions where they were talking about some of the emerging industries and some of the future developments, things to look for. And I'll just give you a short list. It's interesting. There's some sources you can go to read more about them. They were talking about the trends are real estate tech. We see that a lot with Zillow and the other. And there's more that's going into that. I mean, nowadays you can purchase a home online, just like you can a car now. You can order one. You can go, you can view it, you can do all your stuff online, not even see the thing. And there's a lot of mobile and data-driven jobs. We know that there's some retail innovations that are coming. Amazon, I think, is the one that's ahead of everyone on that. Full automation, virtual reality, shopping, that sort of thing. The requirement that you have some kind of cryptocurrency to make purchases. You walk into a room, it knows you're there. You've already got your wallet, they call it your digital wallet. You take your product, you walk out, it's all done. So I know that's crazy for us. But the thing to keep in mind is millennials will make up 40% of the workforce in 5 years. That's one of the quotes I took from there. And it's the millennials that are kind of driving these emerging industries. This is what they want. Along with autonomous vehicles and also the support products and services that will come with that. 3D printing, of course. I mean, it's getting to the point now where 3D printing, they're printing anything. The big part is medical supplies and body parts they're printing with 3D printers. Another thing they were talking about was modular and self-assembling robots, which is interesting. It's going to become a new part of buildings and structures and bridges. These are robots that automatically detect a weakness and can move in and take the place of that structure temporarily until they can come out and do a permanent fix. Crazy, but there's a lot of application for that. And then, of course, there's some more stuff that comes with data, like natural disaster, diversion and detection tech, and robotics is the big thing. They're talking about AI and robotics when it comes to manufacturing. Another thing they talked about is blockchain technology, talking about your currency, your digital currency. So these are things that we need to be preparing for, and that's part of economic development is how to change some of our ordinances to enable it, to prepare for it. Other things, I have a huge list here. I can talk to you guys more about that, but that was kind of the main takeaways I got from that. What's coming?
So it's really interesting, fascinating when you learn about all these evolving technologies, and so that's what I've kind of been stressing before is Parish Gateway, all that RDAs are awesome, but we can't get comfortable with them. Yes, they're doing really well and helping the city out financially, but we need to be thinking about the next thing. And I'm not one to jump on the bandwagon of what's trendy. Just find out what's safe and stable and working. I'm a risk-averse person, but what if Target does shut down? What's the next opportunity? You're actually starting to see governments moving into these retail spaces that are shutting down. It's really fascinating, but we need to be looking at what is the next step. Natalie Gottschner talked about this handoff that's occurring from the baby boomers to Generation X, which I'm the last year of Generation X. And as I was thinking about this idea of this millennials making 40%, and what are we doing to really, as council and local officials, what are we doing to include our youth council? And I thought it'd be great to actually have our youth council mayor maybe sitting in that seat that we can say, what do you think about this? I'm not advocating we do that. I'm just saying that, we're actually making the decisions for the younger generation, and we're kind of pushing it onto them, where I think there's some opportunity where we can be more collaborative and say, what are your thoughts on this, and how does that impact you, and what are you looking for? It's been actually really fun to talk to Mackenzie about a few things. I joked about we need more water bottles here. We had a plethora of water here, right? And I joked, well, maybe we need to go get some water. She's like, I want to live on this planet too, type of comment where it's like, we don't want all this plastic. And so she reminded me that, hey, we need to settle down and not maybe use so much plastic. And it's just fun having that conversation and getting that feedback saying, you know what, you're absolutely right. We don't need to invest in more water bottles. We have a water fountain out there. Anyway, so we're seeing this handoff occur, and what are we doing to help with that handoff? So as I'm sitting in some of these conferences, and as Jake is going to start taking on some of these responsibilities in economic development, we need to develop a benchmark questionnaire. I want to actually start visiting our businesses and start developing that relationship with them, but also developing a questionnaire that we can benchmark. We can go back every 5 years, and we can actually have the data that says, we're growing, we're shrinking, this industry's stronger, this is weaker, and what can we do to assist? But start actually having those relationships more one-on-one. Have a better relationship with the Davis County Chamber, the Davis Chamber of Commerce, but at the same time, maybe having our own lunch and learns where we invite a speaker to come in that primarily benefits Centerville businesses, not necessarily the entire county. Of course, developing a strategic plan. What do we want this city to look like 20, 40 years from now? We need to start making some of those decisions now. Economic development's really frustrating because we can implement something today, but actually not see anything for the next 5 years. 10 years. You may not see it under your tenure in an elected office, but that's the patience and persistence that we need to have and have that vision going out. What are we looking for? But at the same time, getting that input from our residents. So how do we become more business friendly? I want to look for those opportunities where we can highlight businesses on our Facebook page, on our website, and do a much better job of that. And Jake and I have talked about a number of these, some of these ideas. One thing that was really interesting, I think that hit me is Will Novak got up, and it's a really interesting story. He's an economic development program manager in Arizona. He received an email getting an invite to a bachelor party in New Hampshire, or was it Vermont? Anyways.
It was New Jersey, I think, wasn't it?
I don't, anyway, so it was back east, and he said, I'm in. And it wasn't, but the email wasn't for him. But he just took the chances as I'm in. And then he got an email back saying, hey, you know, this wasn't meant for you, but you sound like a cool dude, come on over. And it turned into this big story, and there was people, they got Mercedes-Benz to drive.
Yeah, and he got a GoFundMe account.
He got a GoFundMe account to make his way, and he only asked for $750, and he raised like $5,000 or something like that. It just turned into this huge story. So his you know, what he shared with us is be open to the world. And I kind of think that we can do a little bit more of that even in our profession of these different ideas that come to us. They might be different, but how do we be open to it and see how we can make it work? So what else do I want to emphasize? Need to develop more public-private partnerships. There are plenty of opportunities out there. Sometimes I feel like as a local government, not just Centerville, as in many of my positions, we feel like we're going on our own and we're too prideful to ask for help or assistance, but at the same time, they do want to help and they want to participate. So how do we find these opportunities where we can develop more P3s, public-private partnerships? So those are kind of my takeaways. I think there's some great opportunity as Jake actually can develop some of his time to working with our businesses. I think there's a lot we can do, and it's not with the objective of creating more revenue for the city, but actually just creating a much better business-friendly environment that in itself will grow, right? We don't have to encourage it or force it. We just need to have a better relationship with it. And I think that's the number one. I've met with a couple of businesses already, and that's City Hall's here and we're here. We're not on the same page, and how do we get on the same page? So, any questions for Jake or myself about that conference? I saw Councilmember McEwen making a few looks.
No, I'm just making note. You know, the trend that you see with technology, and this is the hard part. It's the dual-edged sword of, and enabling technology is also a disenfranchising technology, like blockchain stores.
Yep.
Yeah. Seattle has already looked at outlawing blockchain for use in stores because it is disenfranchising of people who don't have the right equipment. They can't go in and shop at a cashless store because they don't have either a bank account or other. So I love technology. I think it's great. It's just that when you look at it, there's always another side to it. So it's really tough. But ultimately, some of those technologies that you've talked about are good, exciting, and it's interesting to see the new faces put on stuff that's been there for a while and see if it takes with new marketing on some of it. And
that's what I argue. I don't want to jump on blockchain because it's the cool thing, and then it falls flat on its face, and we invest, and it was a bad investment. I want tried and true that's proven by others, but You know, we have a great retail sales tax base here, but that could change with sales tax reform at the state legislature, and all of a sudden, now what do we do? Every city's kind of built their model around this, and it might change, but at the same time, we have a great sales tax base, but Farmington Station comes in, and let's say Bountiful has some land and they do something that takes some more away. Luckily, we were to pick some people off the freeway and shop here, but that could change. So we need to be prepared and thinking about that next. I don't know if it's technology, but we can't be so heavily reliant on sales tax at the same time. So what is the next cool thing that has some, I guess, proven track record that says this is promising? So.
Well, and some of that's going to be like you look at down there in the Orem area, and you've got Unicorn Row. You know, you've got places where disruptor technologies are coming, and some companies survive, some burn out just as quickly. So it's an interesting time as far as being in America for that.
Yep. So I think Jake will do a great job as we hand out some of these responsibilities and see what opportunities are out there. Just a few other items. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. We have the candidate orientation is tomorrow night, 6 to 7 p.m. at the county offices. And just June 27th, we'll have that special meeting to deal with the amendments. We weren't sure what our amendments were looking like, as if we were going to need an amendment for our current fiscal year. We've met with Marcus, and we absolutely need to discuss some of these amendments. So we didn't have the proper public notice requirements, so we had to push that to June 27th. So should be a brief, quick meeting, but we just want to make sure we get that done. Any questions for me? I think that's
5:30. Is that right?
5:30, correct, on Thursday, June 27th. And then I'll reach out to Chief Bassett about the 9/11. I think that's an awesome idea, and I think even if it's not
about a week ago. So
even if it's not a ribbon cutting official one, there might be an opportunity to celebrate.
Yeah.
that'd be great.
So.
Yeah, I liked it too. I was going to call him too. So.
It's pretty awesome. Okay, any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Okay, item number 14 is closed meeting. We do have something on our closed meeting agenda tonight. We have an RDA meeting after, so I guess I'm kind of looking, for a motion where we can go to closed meeting, come out of closed meeting, go to the RDA. Can we do something like that? Or?
Well, I'm wondering, Mayor, if you actually go into your RDA meeting, leave this meeting open, and come back to this meeting, go into the closed session, end it, so we don't have to have everybody.
Yeah, I would do that. That's
Okay, let's do it that way then. So we're looking for that motion.
So
Motion to adjourn to an RDA meeting with the intent to come back to city council.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Great. All right, we're now directors. We're on the RDA meeting.
She's recording, changing.
Oh, do I have to slow down, Mackenzie?
Mm-hmm.